Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. A male Karen? It gets more interesting. Good, he got what he deserved. And how good was such a good manager as our OP has? But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Customer that just had to pay cash. Happened to me years ago, my first part-time job in university that I recently got reminded of. It was quite fun. Rarely did we have any problems with customers due to very specific business. Most were in very good mood. We had this subscription service where you could pay monthly fee for a card that got you huge discounts. If you were a frequent customer, it was beyond good deal. These discounts had few minor restrictions, however, nothing crazy, but got many customers confused. Usually, we'd just explain it to them and they were fine with it. One such restriction was you can't pay with cash. In our country, and especially at our location, cash is such a rare occurrence that for average transaction handling, it costs more than card service fees. Then one day comes the angry customer. It was last shift, I was supposed to close in 10 minutes, and as you all likely figured out already, he wants to pay with cash using discount card. I told him he can't, explained policy, he told me he doesn't care, and basically we went back and forth for a few minutes. Finally, my manager arrives to count my till for closing, walks over to the customer and asks, "What's the problem?" Repeats what I said and just tells him he can either pay with card, pay with cash without discounts, or leave because we're closing. He finally chooses option 1. Why did you even argue when you had a card on you? I ask him to touch terminal with his card, and then he decides to push my manager away with his arm. My manager said nothing, smiled, counted my till, and I was on my way. That was strange, because she's not one to take this lightly. I expected all hell to break loose. However, when I was checking in next weekend, she pulled me away and told me that she contacted corporate and not only canceled his card, but also banned him from all locations countrywide, along with a nice email about how grateful he should be that she's not pressing charges for assault. And our second story. Arrogant inspectors are the worst. So recently, the higher-ups at my job decided we needed inspectors to make sure we were doing our jobs right. In comes a cocky inspector fresh out of AWS school. As usually, he starts flexing nuts and making unreasonable and unnecessary demands. He even went so far as to threaten to write me up and my guys for not putting a 45-degree chamfer on all our parts, despite the prints not calling for it. Okay, so yesterday I noticed that some of the parts my guys cut while I was on vacation were cut out of the wrong material, but had the inspector's signature on it. I kept it to myself, so I can see how far down the production line they would get before anyone noticed. They noticed today. After the parts had been welded on the assembly, the foreman comes running up to me in a panic asking about them and if I can get it fixed. I said, absolutely, but why were they okayed for production? Shouldn't our overpaid inspector have caught that during inspection? Later in the day, word comes down that the inspector must inspect every part that comes out of our area before they go into production, so I pull my guys aside and inform them of this. I also inform them I want them to start inspecting each other's work before calling the inspector. On top of all that, I told them I wanted them to start pumping out parts as quickly as they can so the inspector isn't able to stay in his nice comfy office for more than 2 minutes. They did so flawlessly. We had him going up and down the stairs to his office all day today. I will be leaving that job in a few weeks, but I'm thinking to enjoy making his life a living hell for those 3 weeks. Oh, I forgot the best part. He had to write up 5 non-conformance reports on himself for failing to notice the mistakes during his inspection. And our last story. My boss thought she could insult everyone, so I made her pay everyone for going on vacations. Last year, I took a summer job for a kids camp. It seemed to be quite well paid, and I wanted to try how working with kids goes. The hiring process was a little odd. As for the interview, I was called unexpectedly, and that woman, which was later my boss, spoke on the phone for about 2.5 hours plus and asked some really weird personal questions. For example, she asked, "You aren't a COVID idiot, are you?" Remember that? It'll be a factor later in the story. Anyway, I needed the money, and it was the only callback I'd gotten so far, so I took it. She then made us all come in 2 times before starting the job so that she can explain it to us. Both times it went on the whole effing day without being included in our payments because it was not mandatory. I got to be the boss of my team. The first day came around and we faced 20-plus children with their parents, but the boxes with the name lists, the toys, and everything weren't there. We basically improvised and wrote the names as they came and hoped that they're indeed signed up. Later, the boxes arrived, but the contents were measly at best. She'd given us 2 kinds of games, Uno and something else, bought it like 3 times. We got little instruments for the kids to decorate, but when she came around to check on us a few days later, she screamed at us. The effing kids shouldn't have been allowed to take the instruments home, which she never said and made no sense. The next few days went on like this. She came around and screamed at us for doing something that made sense to every one of us and pretending she had instructed us otherwise at the unpaid, non-mandatory orientation meeting, which I attended every time. She just talked about her personal life, no instructions. She went on and offended every single person in existence. She doesn't want to have lactose intolerant or handicapped kids in the camp because they're too much of a hassle. My Muslim colleague got scolded for wanting to go home to her toddler after a 10-hour shift, and she asked her in front of everyone if her son still sucks on her tees because else she doesn't have any reason to go home. Also, she made us work more than 12 hours without a break and crap on me when I stood up and went home at 12 hours worked. We have a law that requires that here. But 2 events stood out. When she went after the kids, on the first occasion, you have to remember that this woman has an unhealthy obsession with Corona. She not only changed the rules of everything anytime it fit her narrative, with us, she also did that with the parents, which led to misunderstandings. Every single day. So she asked the children aged 4 to 10 which one had an antigen test and who had the PCR test. Of course, the children didn't all know what that is, and a little 5-year-old girl raised her hand for the false one. When the witch, my boss, noticed that, she gave this poor girl the scolding of her life and told her that she's dumb as a rock for not knowing the difference. Pretty sure this girl had spit in her face. I was so in shock, I probably should have slapped her for that, but I didn't. The girl tried hard not to cry and didn't come back the days after. The second incident was even more disturbing. A 4-year-old boy hit his head at the playground when they were all outside. I was back in the office when my colleagues came running. I called the boss while my colleague called the ambulance. When I told her that and how my colleague was already on the phone with the ambulance, she scolded me. Not because that boy got hurt, no, because we called the ambulance. In her world, it wasn't that bad, and the father shouldn't find out. As if he was blind and wouldn't have seen the wound anyway. The ambulance came, told us it was completely fine, even mandatory to call them in this case as an institution, and the boy suffered no further injury. He's fine now, thankfully. But I was curious. I was completely freaking out of anger. I'd only worked there for 9 days and had been abused enough. Instead of going after my impulse to call her back and tell her off, I calmed myself, and the next day, I didn't go to work but to the doctor. I explained to her that my boss abuses me, but I can't terminate the contract early, so to keep me from snapping, she put me on sick leave without end date. My boss was not amused when I sent her that doctor's notice, but I ignored her calls. I then proceeded to talk with my teammates and encouraged them to get sick leave and told them exactly what they can do and say to get that. They even tried to get rid of my Muslim coworker illegally. I explained to her that the paperwork from them is not legal and she should ignore it and also go on sick leave. So in about a 2-week frame, my location had to replace all 6 people, including me, the boss there. And I took all records home too, so she couldn't just pass them on. Also, I changed the password to my email account and did everything to piss her off. The story doesn't end there. As I found out, the word spread like a wildfire, and because she was such a piece of crap to everyone at every location, 1 month after the start, she lost more than half of her staff. Some of them still had to be paid sick leave. Apparently, she called some of them and begged them to come back and offered bonuses as high as double the pay, and still got nobody to come back to help. The silver lining was that the parents also had enough, and many kids were taken out of that camp. So, end of July was there. I was on vacation sick leave, and she calls. She proceeds to tell me, suspiciously calm, that if I don't want to come back next month, I should let her know now, please, and she offered to end my contract without further obligations and with my payment for the whole month of July. I tell her about how I'm coming back because I really want to get better and other bullcrap, and of course I just didn't and proceeded to collect one additional full month of sick leave without even ever speaking to her directly again. I also went out of my way to continue offering information for every single staff member of all locations that wanted to leave and still get paid or wanted to know where they can report her. So in the end, this is what she got for being a disrespectful bee. She lost half or more of her workers. Everyone hates her and wants nothing to do with her, really bad publicity included. She had to pay me the full 2 months, my vacation time, out in money, which is quite expensive for them, as I didn't take it because I was so sick, pay my overtime, and the mandatory bonus you get for doing extra hours, all this multiplied by 6 at least. I got around 6,000 euros for 9 days of work from them. Her entire enterprise went downhill. Of course, I also had to get my money through legal support, so that came on to her too. I can't explain how much detail I put in the legal planning, so to get all the people paid out as much as possible, without any chance of legal repercussions ever, my butt's safer than safe. She'll not ever be able to retaliate on what I did there. I studied law for a while and got everything double-checked by professionals. She tried to harass me. I blocked her. But I heard she read my personal information to the other colleagues who stayed there and called me all possible names. So if she should ever even try to sue me or blackmail me, I have evidence and witnesses for trying to dox me, insulting me, and various others. Honestly, after I wrote that down now, I'm kind of proud, but also surprised at how nicely all that worked out. I didn't see any listing searchings for that project this year, so hopefully that went downhill, and I hope she went back to hell where she came from, unemployed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.